For more than 4 decades, the investment world and most of the rest of the world has paid little or no attention to the home inspection industry. We're beginning to see that change, specifically in the recent article by Spruce Point Capital Management on Porch. I'm trying to understand, and we're going to get some clarity on that, of what that does that mean. What does it mean to Porch? What does that mean to capital investors? And what does that mean to those in the inspection industry? I've invited the CEO of Residential Warranty Services, Nathan Thornberry, to spend a little bit of time with us. He has recently written a rebuttal to the Spruce Point Capital Management report, and we want to understand what it all means and why. Nathan, welcome.
Hello, Wally.
Let me start out with what makes you qualified to comment on Spruce Capital Management's position?
Well, for one, I've been involved in the home inspection industry all my life, but professionally for the last 21 years. And, for the last 10 years or so, we've been the largest vendor in the home inspection space in its history. The amount of data that we see on a daily basis, which of course we don't use for anything, other than our own internal purposes, and things inspectors tell us to do with it, is far beyond what any analyst on Wall Street certainly is going to have, but it's beyond what even some insiders there may have. So there was enough that was clearly inaccurate to me, almost the whole document, candidly. And we know factually the opposite. So I don't speak to things I'm uncertain of, and in this space, between not only being a player in the home inspection space, but also being, a vendor, somebody that Porch utilizes for services. We're part of a service package we can get into there, but also being a fierce competitor, so kind of seeing it from those three sides. And I don't think Spruce Point has ever seen it from half of one side.
So who is Spruce Point Capital Management? Who are they, and what is their business model? What do they do? Why do they care about Porch?
Well, Spruce Point is an activist short seller, and this isn't something that is unique to Spruce Point's model. There's certainly many of them out there, but basically there are groups that look for opportunities to short in a number of ways in the stock market, or up one of their other positions, or make a buy opportunity happen through means of researching and conveying to the public and to their readership, or to people that have subscribed to their newsletter. This is something that has been going on for a long time, long before there was a Reddit group of people saying, oh, here's the thing everybody should buy. Here's the thing everybody should sell. Here's somebody that has a short position. Let's all go screw them over. That's kind of the social media on steroids activism by groupthink, and probably largely led by one or two or five minds. This is a more traditional model in the shorting game.
So what you were referencing there was GameStop, the calamity of the spring of 2020. Porch. Who is Porch? How was it founded? What's their business model? Who are these people?
Well, Porch has had a lot of business models. It started many years ago by Matt Ehrlichman and a team that was, also as Spruce Point rightly points out, and this was one of the few things they got right. Largely a team that was at the active network. So, the super friends there, as I call them, are in all the executive seats, and they go and, in my view, they started with Porch as a oversimplified wannabe home advisor. Then they get some steam and bring in some money. They start fundraising, which is exactly what they did at Active Network. And one of those partners ends up being Lowe's, and Lowe's makes a large contribution to the cause. And then they start making deals with retailers. And I think they shifted the model from, it's going to be so easy. We're going to put out there that you can get services for your house. And then if we build that, then a bunch of contractors will come, and that doesn't happen. And by the way, it's not their fault. Home Advisor, they fulfill maybe 40% of the times that you as a homeowner might go to Home Advisor and say, I need a plumber. Expect to hear from a plumber 40% of the time. So, that is not an easy thing to do. And so, they went to, I think very smartly, a model where they did simpler things. So it became Porch is a fulfillment device for retailers, online retailers, to hang your TV, hang your shelves, build a little furniture, simple stuff that's not only simple, but doesn't require licensing. So you can scale that up. And at that point, they might have had dreams of those people being, employees of Porch at some point. Well, as it turns out, that was pretty hard to implement too. and this, again, I don't consider it Porch's fault. They were doomed for failure on this thing in that method of trying to scale, because the retailers are used to a very simple exchange with their customer. Customer comes in, buys a toaster, buys a TV, swipes their credit card, they're out the door. And if the customer has a problem, well, they just bring the damn TV back. The guy at the customer service desk has asked hardly any questions, takes it back, gives them their credit card feedback, or gives them a store credit, and they go shopping for the next thing. That's the extent of customer service for a Best Buy, for an Etsy, for Wayfair, for Lowe's. And so when they started injecting this other model, well, okay, now they have to deal with some customer service, and some serious customer service. Did the guy show up? How'd he smell? Did he put a hole in the wall where there was no stud? Every little thing. And then you still got to get an army of people out there to service any reasonable amount of zip codes. And that's a lot of execution risk. And I'm not sure that they passed the bar on that. So then Porch reinvents itself again. I say reinvents itself. They kept some of that stuff going, and they certainly get some revenue from it today. It hasn't gone perfectly, but very few things in business do. And so they shift, and they run into a guy named Kevin O'Malley, and they buy some a technical support thing that has, didn't really go anywhere, but it seemed like a cool idea. And once they had that, then they're like, okay, what's the real deal? And they end up buying a CRM in our industry. They stumbled. They thought that it was going to be easy to come in and just say, oh, we're here and we're going to use all your data and solicit your clients. And they found out very quickly that the home inspection industry was going to reject that. So then they had to, shift again, which you have to give them full credit for. They shift again. And they go, all right, we're not going to do that. We're going to, be in the business of selling you guys on actually participating in this thing. And then they packaged that up as an IPO, but didn't go IPO. They planned to go IPO at some point, and then these things called SPACs came along, and they figured that was an easier way into the market. And they're very controversial. And so as Porch is going through another shift into the insurance market and doing some things that I think are really good moves. I give Matt full credit for some of these latest moves. They're just
in that acquisition. You mentioned the CRM, specifically Inspection Support Network, ISN. That's been several years ago now, I guess 3 or 4 years ago. That caused a fervor in the inspection industry, affectionately known as Porchgate. Why did that cause such fear, chaos, and pushback? And what could Porch have done differently to avoid that alienation?
Well, when they bought it, the first thing that they did was, they went to an industry of 30,000, hardworking blue collar folks, my people, and they said, "Oh, we've just partnered with this company," which was a lie. So they started the relationship with home inspectors as a lie because it wasn't a partnership. They had acquired the thing. They had bought the thing. They already owned it by the time there was, any sort of communication. And then, to add icing to that poop cake, they send out a video with one of the founders of ISN, a great friend of mine and friend of yours, and they have him reading from a script for 10 minutes about how great this this partnership with Porch is going to be, and we're going to just going to start calling all your clients with or without your permission. Welcome to the new world. And the inspectors didn't like that. Yeah.
Why didn't they like that? And did it actually matter? Was it a public relations nightmare, or was there something there that was really acting to the deficit of chucking a truck home inspector?
Well, there certainly are inspectors that were unaware of the level to which that much of the industry was offended. But for those that are in the know, for those that account for not 80% of the volume of users, but 80% of the volume of transactions on a platform like ISN, for them, they go, okay, I now have a trust issue. Because even if you walked it back, even if you said, on day one, we're just going to force your hand and here's your new business model, you're no longer in control of that business that you got into home inspection to do. Like, these are all entrepreneurs. They run small businesses, and they control the way that they handle their clients, their client experience. And so this was weird uncle trust breaking kind of stuff. And I don't think that they ever really took that seriously, other than to say, oh, we made a mistake, sorry. Well, that isn't good enough, right? So
trust is everything in any business. That's important.
Indeed.
So that there was that misstep. It didn't go well. And then scroll ahead to several months ago, and Porch makes an acquisition of America's Call Center. What made America's Call Center attractive to Porch, and what's the impact of that acquisition on an America's Call Center customer, ISN customer? How does that play together for Porch in their eyes? What is the impact, and what does it mean to the individual home inspection company?
Well, let me give you a huge positive response on that one. Let's assume that at this point there's been some churn in the industry, that the people that were offended enough by all of that couldn't get over it. They've moved, they've done their thing. So now we're where we're at. And Porch says we're going to go into America's Call Center. Why would they choose it? Well, because it was available and at the right price. They made a smart acquisition move. I'm excited about it because you have a company that has access to huge amounts of funding. They're going to go into a home inspection industry that, to this day, when I entered the call center business, and I run the largest in the industry, it was less than 1% of inspectors were on a call center. Today, it's still less than 5%. If there's an access to capital markets, if there's an access to major funding, and Porch implements, executes well on the message of here's how to run a real business, and we've put in great processes, great trained people, and is really good at promoting this idea, this could be good for the industry overall. And there's a lot of room. If they were even to get 20% of the industry, that'd be an extra $20 million in sales. So they should focus on that a little bit.
The data. Home inspection companies have a perception that their data is holy, that it's sacred, and that it has immense value. My question is, does the individual home inspection company's data have any value? And if it's aggregated, does it have value?
Well, let's start with just a kind of a different approach first, and then we'll get into that question. So if you're Nathan Thornberry and you worked with home inspectors all your life, well, the way that you utilize a piece of data is exactly how the inspector wants you to, And if there's some sales piece to it, it's very light, it's very rare, it's well compensated, or at least appropriately compensated to what it is to the home inspector. The difference for a porch, and not just a porch, a home binder. Home binder is doing nothing but stealing leads, charging you for the for it, and then selling people everything without any hesitation. Like they just don't get it. But Porches definitely has historically tried to push that way further than inspectors wanted to. I think we're going to see that rolled back. I think they're going to focus on that insurance side. And I think that that's going to ultimately turn out well. And I think that the same lessons they learned before, they're going to learn there, where, they have to compensate in some way the inspectors. So their cost per lead gen is definitely going to go up over time. I don't think it's going to go up extremely, certainly not the way that Spruce Point has indicated. Now, as far as data value, well, all right, my parents are in the home inspection business. We have a basement over there full of 250,000, 300,000 home inspection files. I'm nearly 40. My parents are 63. I'm taking bids on all that data. Whoever wants to send me an offer, all right, let's start it. I don't know, $5 per file. I've never had anybody even offer me $1 or 50 cents. I mean, really, in reality, I'm going to have to pay somebody to come and shred that shit. And the idea that any of that has value, and like, oh, we know the roof is bad, so that has value. Actually getting that to the point where it's actionable and it pays a lot is, a fallacy. It's just a fallacy. Our contractor management system is doing a good job of promoting very specific things for a very reasonable data price. And, 100% of that revenue driver over and above programming costs is going straight back to home inspectors. So there's already a solution for that in the marketplace, would be my argument.
Yeah. So the data, it's very, very emotional, but in terms of something evil happening to the customer or the home inspector being taken advantage of because someone has data, it feels like that's more emotion or ego than it is any actual concern.
Without a doubt. And I think there's a huge difference between the way that inspectors look at this, the way that the consuming public looks at it, and the way that an investor class looks at it. And I think, if there's anything that is kind of fair, I say kind of fair, it was really just copied and pasted into this Spruce Point report. There was a statement from Candela in their lawsuit against Porch about misrepresentations concerning access to data, number of transactions that Porch is involved in, and it's just important to ask the right question. What actual actions are permitted? Because this data isn't Porch's data, it's the inspector's data. And if that gets utilized in a way that doesn't have authorization and probably some level of compensation for that, which they already do with the the free version of the software, then it's not going to be actionable.
So I read the Spruce Point report. I read your rebuttal to the report. What is it about that report that got you sufficiently riled to write the rebuttal? Why do you care?
Well, there's two issues. Number one is, if we just look at markets and with all of these SPACs coming out and how they're being portrayed in the marketplace, which some of them are being portrayed very fairly, by the way, and negatively. But when you look at something that's unfair, that is total nonsense, well, that's not good for the market. That doesn't have a purpose other than, okay, there's 100% false conjecture, which is now apparently Spruce Point Capital Management's main business model, which then, inspires class action lawyers to go out and, invite victims. What victims? The thing went up to a certain level. It came down a little bit, but nothing outside of the realm of what you would expect on a speculative stock. And it hasn't even like halved or gone down 75% or anything like that. It's stock's doing pretty good. So, it's like these law firms are inspired by this stuff to think that there's smoking guns somewhere, but there really isn't. There was no facts in it. And they didn't even bother to look at the stock chart to see if anybody had been damaged. It's just nonsense.
What are the key points that Spruce Point got wrong? What are the key points that Spruce Point got right?
They got well, I mean, most every point was wrong. I think one thing that they did here that I think many are going to do with other SPACs, with other similar situations, is start comparing these stocks to stocks that have nothing to do with the sector or the type of company. Maybe there was some management in common, as there was in one of their examples, but it's just kind of messy and sloppy to go about things that way. And then to say things like, it should be beholden upon a company going through a SPAC process, through an IPO, representing themselves to the public in a publicly traded environment, that there is a competitor called Google and a competitor called Amazon, and you need to talk about the competitive environment, including those two. And it's like, what are you talking about? There's a basic total lack of knowledge of even what the business model is, and it's very clear in their report. I think that troubles me most. But the reason I was really compelled, rather than responding to one of the other reports out in the market like this one, because Spruce Point isn't alone in being completely full of shit. This one was about our industry, about home inspection, and it's about a company that's been loud, controversial, very accepted, good for many inspection companies too, by the way. Let's not forget that. There's a reason they have the amount of business that they do. So don't take my statements as 100% negative on that. And we are now showing kind of this ugly to 30,000 inspectors that have never seen anything like it. And so they don't know that it's just horse shit. And worse yet, there are people working at Porch that are working people that came in, got a job, and they're reading a report that says their CEO's a $33 million thief, and that there's all this crap going on. And those people are working for inspectors in many cases. Why do they need to feel that way over nonsense? So I don't know. I felt compelled, and it was a late night.
How does the long-term success of Porch bring success or value to the home inspection industry as a whole? Likewise, what risk does the success by Porch bring to the industry?
And it may or may not be Porch. Okay, let's just talk in terms of highly capitalized, high growth, and integrated into multiple market verticals companies. And again, there might be a different player that comes along and does it in a different way, and a way that's even better. It could be that Porch gets it all right. They've already shifted their business model like 5 times. They could do it 7 times and knock it out of the park. When they're doing this, you look at the numbers, you look at the amount of money that they've brought in order to do that, and they're sitting on $230 million worth of cash. That's more cash than vendors in the home inspection space have had. And so, if you convert that money into innovation, into investment in the future, to whatever extent they do that in the inspection sector, that could be good. And not just them, it's the next guy. And we have not had that here.
If Spruce Point were to be correct in their position and projections, and Porch were to evaporate, how does that help or harm the guy on the street, the home inspector who's out doing what they're doing? They may be a customer of Porch or one or more of the services that they now offer to home inspectors. What's the impact on that individual company if Porch evaporated overnight?
Largely emotional impact. I mean, at the end of the day, Porch has a few assets, and one of them is ISN. It's not like they're going to shut off the lights and forget to get a few $1 million from somebody. I don't know who it might be, but I can't imagine that they would forget to cash that check on the way out the door when stock price has gone down. There's a shift. There's a new partner in a totally different space going, we like that, and they buy some other things that they like. They buy the connectivity that they've built to contractors, for instance, or they buy the insurance company, which is a great move. And then they're focused on all that, and they go, we don't really want this. We don't want to manage that. Let's divest ourselves of that piece. If it actually goes like totally to shit, that would almost have to be at this scale. You look at companies that had $1 billion plus valuation on public markets, that would have to be a major scandal. We could probably make up a major scandal right now and just like a super funny one, but I'm older and more mature now, so I won't do that.
Yeah, 40's been good for you.
Yeah.
In your so is it fair and honest to say from your perspective that an extreme success or an extreme failure by Porch is not in and of itself a concern to the day-to-day business of 5 or 8 or 10,000 home inspection companies around the country?
3 or 4 years ago, it might have been. At that moment where they kind of had their finger on a trigger to say, here's the change in business model that we're going to implement for all of you, right? When that faux pas occurred, if they were in the process of that and things went sideways and some, evil empire came in to pick up the pieces and buy them, they could have continued with that and created a pretty substantial frustration, at least, for a lot of inspection companies that would have to, move some things and switch some things around. But even then, I don't think it would have been more than a 3 to 6 month bump in the road. I think at this point, that's gone. I think the number of inspectors that are, on the Porch Home Assistant, for instance, has diminished a bit. I think more of the ones that are on it and are having a good experience are having a good experience because they went through a revised process. They learned how to present it to their clients, or they're in areas where it works great. And so those guys, they had a good experience. They continued with that good experience. They built into it. This guy in an area where it didn't work, he's long gone. So, I don't think it explodes. It's not a mine full of dynamite anymore.
No need to lose sleep over it either way. All right.
No.
In your rebuttal to the Spruce Point report, you cited some threats, what you felt were legitimate threats to Porch that weren't necessarily noted by Spruce Point. I'd like to ask you about those and determine what they are and why they would be threatening to Porch. First is NextInspect software.
Well, NextInspect is pretty clear why it's a threat. It's awesome. It's fast. It's new programming. It's intuitive. It does exactly what ISN does and then some, and it's free. So the only barrier that NextInspect has to gaining inspection more in the inspection space, which it's gained a ton already. I'm very, very pleased with the results thus far, is a single client that is not willing to change today, is nervous about the change. There's a pain of disconnect. So getting over that, and a couple of integrations in the home inspection reporting software space that are, in my view, already on their way to being resolved. So it's really just that one piece. Well, over time, it just means the growth goes slower.
Why or how is NextInspect software free?
Oh, well, for many reasons. But the number one reason is that there are too many administrative software packages out there. The free, I can only imagine that there would be a few people that would go, oh, that guy made, Nathan made NextInspect free to flub ISN. Couldn't be further from the truth. The fallout from ISN wasn't NextInspect. It was HIP's office. It was HG's HomeGage's office getting more robust. It was Spectora putting some focus into theirs. It was Horizon for the first. It's like Alan got up. He had a V8, and he said, "I'm going to make this office software great." The minute Porchgate happened, and so what you have now is a bunch of administrative software where industries at many times the scale of ours have one or two. We now got six. And so there's a downside to that in future growth in the home inspection business for profitability for individual home inspector businesses. And that's who I wake up in the morning for, because they won't be able to have resources that are good and efficient when they're trying to manage through only a small pond to begin with, and that pond is all diverse in how they operate their businesses. So if you're a home inspector watching this and you have seen a Ferrari in your town and it's driven by a guy that sold the termite company, he did that because somebody came in and there was a system that was one of the few in the industry. He was using that. He was on call centers that know how to use the very few, and he's driving a Ferrari and you are not. Like, I literally do not know a home inspector with a fucking Ferrari, and that's a travesty. So anyway,
Other threats that you identified in your rebuttal that could pose a threat to Porch was some software providers. Specifically, you named HomeGage, Inspector Pro. Why is that threatening to Porch?
Well, because they're already there and in the inspector's life in a deeper way as the report provider. Now, all of them also have in common that they have an administrative software that is not as robust as ISN and certainly not as robust as NextInspect. And none of these companies have the scale outside of American Family, who now owns HomeGage. I mean, if they lost their minds and wanted to spend $100 million in the home inspection industry for a really great return, then maybe they could actually put the money into it. But at this point, we're creating a lot of software that is not going to be very functional in coming years, and inspectors are going to get stuck. So that's why I make it free for 5 years. What's good for the industry is good for me. I have enough holdings. I didn't need to make money off that, and I burned through $2 million getting there.
You mentioned multiple administrative softwares, and many of the inspection software providers have an integrated admin software. Virtually all of those software providers that provide report software, even if they have an administrative software that lives in that same package, interact nicely and automatically with ISN. They interact and play nicely with NextInspect. There's one or two outliers that choose not to interact. Why would that be?
I've come to realize that in the one most prevalent case of a company that says they're not going to, that it's pretty simply that their administrative software is a per unit fee, and they'd really like to charge that fee. I have no problem with that. It doesn't offend me. In the case of HomeGage, we've been having discussions recently, so maybe they're moving in that direction. Some of it has been stupid industry drama. Oh gosh, I don't like that guy or whatever. And basically people that don't, run a business with their emotions, which is the exact wrong way. And even so, we for all of that as as a stated problem in our industry, the amount of integration is actually really, really good. There is a a potential Armageddon. If you really think about what could screw up a lot of people's days, it would be if some of these software providers started going, you know what, we're the administrative software of the future. We've decided, we've self-anointed ourselves kings. We're cutting off everything, and inspectors wake up to that.
That's the risk then. If an inspection company is dealing with a software provider that is totally internal, or I guess I should say, they are not connected and interactive with other things in the industry, be it ISN, NextInspect, Recall Check, or whatever, those things that don't play nicely together, are they putting that inspection company at risk?
Oh, they most certainly are. And I wish that that Russ Collio, founder of Inspection Management System, which really was the first administrative software that was a standalone, that was independent, that said, here's your business, here's where it is, and you can move to all the other different softwares. You have that flexibility. You're not owned by anybody. He made that case really well. He built a great business. I would say probably in the 1,000 user range, maybe 1,500, and then his mouth got ahead of him one day.
Never happens in the home inspection industry, Nathan.
Yeah, which it does. And to be fair to him, I'm not even sure that what he said wasn't, I'm sure it was misinterpreted, and people hear what they want to hear and then act on it how they want to act on it. And I think it was a setup to some extent.
You close out your report with a path to profitability for Porch. What is that path to profitability? And for individual home inspection companies, how do they position themselves to bring value to their own company while Porch is moving itself to profitability?
Right. Well, let's look at, let's separate home inspection businesses from all of this nonsense, first of all, because, this is stuff I don't play in. There are people that would see my, cool office here, or hang out at one of our awesome rooftop parties you always seem to be at, or see how I travel and go, oh, he must be in this kind of stuff. Hell no, I am not. I've never taken an investment, have no debt. I'm very conservative financially. I see companies that have that even think about evaluating what they're worth in terms of a multiple on top line revenue, and I just barf in a trash can. I mean, it makes me sick. So this is not my cup of tea. The kind of people that are investing in a Porch, other SPACs, these speculative stocks, they know what they're doing. They get the idea that they're buying into a future value, and they also get the idea that they don't put all their money in one of them. They buy 10. They buy 10 that they made some level of determination that they have a decent potential chance of hitting it big, and they're not looking for that company to make 5 to 8% a year like I do with my Procter and Gamble stock. They're looking for one to do 80 or 200 or something crazy, and write off the loss on the other. So it's just a different thing. It is a gamble. Now you go back to some of these numbers and the path to profitability. I'm trying to find the page. I've been doing that as I was talking. Let's talk about the total revenues to Porch, their losses, the cost from their numbers, their overall loss for the year. That loss is pretty decently big. It's in the tens of millions, but it would not be hard to cut a lot of that overhead out. So you can get rid of that while switching to a model where most of your employee labor, communication with client cost happens through automated systems that are largely already built and are aimed at creating long-term revenue and some short-term revenue as well in the insurance space, where they now own an insurance company that, in my estimation, is underreported on what they're going to bring in EBITDA to these numbers. So we had an adjusted EBITDA loss in 2019 of 36 million. I think that has been already cut to probably 25 million. And I think they can cut, I think they're in the process of cutting the 25 million and replacing it with very, very awesome insurance agents. That's the model. That's the model. And if they do that, they win.
All right. So to close us out, imagine you were sitting on high with solely the interest of the home inspection community, not just the community as an industry, but that individual inspector inspection company. What should they be doing now to prepare for a changing world, a changing industry? Where do I need to be? What do I need to be doing to optimize my profit position in my company?
Optimizing profit position. Okay, I didn't know where you were going with that. Totally different. Well, number one, look at the expense side, and you look at some of the things that I'll take a little bit of credit for. We're cutting the E&O insurance costs of thousands of inspectors right now, and little plug, rwsinsurance.com. That's huge. If you go into ancillaries, if you're now one of the inspectors that doesn't offer environmental testing, it used to be you were one of half that didn't do that, or even 70% when it was early on. Now you are in the minority. You are behind. You better get on it, and you better start looking at other ancillaries. If you're not in growth mode, if you're not gaining more inspectors month by month, if that's not where your business model is right now, or if it's where you never want it to be, then you need to be looking at sewer camera inspections done in-house. You need to be looking at the leakalizer. You need to be looking at adding the number of types of inspections that you do, and also being ready for when this thing goes down 20%, because it's going to. So for those of you that are, I had a discussion with a Chicago area home inspector.
This thing meaning the real estate market taking a dip in transactions.
Yeah. So, we went down 20% in 2008, 2006, really. I mean, it was already tough financing. It's like we didn't know. but in 2006, 2009, we saw that dip. We went down almost 20%. We've been in the last year, we saw this increase. We're up almost 20%. Well, it all balances out. The line always just goes like this, but it has a couple of these. It's not going to be killer, but when I hear of inspectors that are going, oh, it's such a great year, I'm going to go and buy a big office with a warehouse, and it's time to go to the Harley Davidson store. Always wanted one of those. I'm all about doing, following your dreams, but just know that there's a bit of a correction. Where in real estate, it won't be disastrous, but it'll be something.
So close us out. Final thought.
Spruce Point, if you're listening, if you're someone that's a client of Spruce Point listening, I think that it's been proven. If you go to the website, if you go to one of my press releases, there will be a link posted with this video, I'm sure. I can go through every single line and show you that what they're posting is not research, it's bullshit. And you should know that everything that they put out there is bullshit, and all they're doing is yelling fire in the middle of a movie theater, and there's no fire. So keep that in mind for everything they say in the future.
Nathan, I can always count on you to share exactly what you think unfiltered. So I appreciate the conversation. Have a great day. We'll talk again soon.
Always fun, Walter. See you.